questions, I'm sure. Buenos días y bienvenidos, bienvenidas a la clase. Y vamos a terminar con las cositas de la semana pasada. We're gonna start off with the things we didn't finish from last week. That's the game plan. So that means we've got some of these, a few of these hypothetical questions. I think we have 5 of them. Hay cinco. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco. Hay cinco. There are 5 of them. See. We've got a few of our phrases. I want you the examples I asked you to prep. And if you didn't get time to do them because I really had too much in last week, then, you know, just go with the flow. We'll do some examples of that. So we're going to finish up with those 2 things. And then we're going to move on to, it's good to know you guys have questions on the video and some things I want you to notice about the video, or maybe go back this week and listen for a specific thing if you didn't listen for it before. So that is our game plan. And our game plan is to inch into the subjuntiva, subjunctive thing, just a teeny tiny bit, because subjunctive is a huge, huge topic. It is a scary topic, but you hear it all the time, and you just have to kind of prepare with listening to a lot of examples. It's helpful to listen to a lot of examples before you actually have to do some of your own. So that is our game plan for today. Vamos a empezar con las preguntas hipotéticas. We're going to start back up with where we left off on these hypotheticals. And I know, Marcos, your question had been, just so that we know where we left off, this structure, volver a infinitivo, volver a and an infinitive. And what does that mean? Because volver by itself means to return or come back to a place. Volver can also have to do with revolving or turning around. Sometimes it's reflexive, it might mean turn around. Sometimes it's reflexive, it means become. So volver has many meanings, but this volver a is used a lot to say again. All it means, volver a, and I'll have this down as our little reminder, is that to do something again. And the action that you're doing again is this infinitivo, this infinitive part. Okay, the volver a is the again idea. And we can say, instead of volver a, otra vez, again, we can say de nuevo, again. But why does Spanish have so many ways to say again? I don't know, no lo sé. Pero this is actually quite a common thing to use our volver a. So,
Una pregunta.
sí, Kathleen.
The verb regresar
Uh-huh.
also means to return, but
Sí.
I'm guessing that that's only used with respect to locations. Is that right or no?
Yes, yeah, we cannot use it with the again idea.
Okay.
Sí, that you're right, physically returning. Sí, eso. Bien.
Gracias.
Okay. Entonces, everything started with ¿qué prefieres? What do you prefer? See? And these are impossible situations. Son situaciones casi imposibles, pero es así. No volver a escuchar música, never to hear music again, o no volver a leer. Sí. ¿Qué prefieres? Kathleen.
Prefiero no volver a leer, porque me encanta leer, pero hoy en día I I podcasts and um, todo es disponible en audio.
Ah, hay muchos audiolibros.
Sí.
Hay libros para leer con los ojos y hay audiolibros, sí, para escuchar un libro. Ah, esto sí, lo entiendo porque de veras muchas veces escucho un audiolibro cuando monto en bicicleta, cuando estoy trabajando en el jardín, ¿sí? En
Mm,
el jardín no puedo leer cuando tengo que trabajar, así que es mejor para mí escuchar algo, ¿sí? Algo que me gusta
ujú.
mientras estoy trabajando, ¿sí? Ah, buena razón. Ok, otra idea, otra idea. Sí, Diana.
Um, es muy difícil, pero me encanta leer cada día. ¿Cómo se dice so? Una palabra por so
Así
en
que,
español.
o entonces,
Entonces prefiero
ok,
uh,
prefieres leer.
leer para recibir placer y información.
Información, muy importante, sí. Información del clima, información de cómo hacer una receta, how to do a recipe, información de muchas cosas, ¿sí? A ver, bueno, hay otra idea con esto. Bueno, sí, sí, Lori.
Prefiero no volver a escuchar música, especialmente desde me jubilé. Leo casi cada día. Leo en inglés y español. Y es muchísimo más fácil leer en español que entender cuando los hispanohablantes hablan español.
Buen punto, que muchas veces cuando queremos expresar algo en español es más fácil entender la palabra escrita, the written word, ¿sí? Tenemos tiempo para pensar y no tenemos que reaccionar inmediatamente, sí, podemos pensar un poquito y traducir en la mente un poquito. Sí, ah, eso sí entiendo. Vale, bueno, ah, siguiente. Esto es un poquito tonto. This is a little silly, ¿sí? Y se usa esto en referencia a los zapatos. They were talking about shoes with this example, ¿sí? Bien, usar dos tallas más grandes de zapato siempre o dos tallas más chicas siempre.
Can you, before I answer or try answering, can you kind of give us the context on using the word chicas
Ah,
for small or tight or
sí.
something like that?
Chicas, aquí especialmente en México, hay muchos mexicanos que prefieren usar chicas en vez de pequeñas, pero son equivalentes. They are equivalent. And if you ever pick up a piece of clothing that was made abroad, someplace south of our border here in the US, um, instead of having like little tags in your clothing, yeah, for sizes, En inglés, S, M, L, X, L, L, small, medium, large, extra large. You'll often see a C for the small. Chico. You'll see chico. If you ever see a C in a size tag in the back of your clothing, that is for small, chico. So, sí, dos tallas más chicas. It's just an equivalent use or an equivalent word to pequeñas. Nada más, nothing else. Okay. Yo personalmente prefiero usar dos tallas más grandes. Tengo los pies muy grandes. Los pies míos son muy grandes, ¿sí? Y muchas veces en el pasado he tenido muchos problemas con los zapatos muy pequeños, muy chicos. Así que si tengo que escoger, ok, entonces prefiero dos tallas más grandes, pero ustedes, ¿una opinión o no? No,
Pa-
sí,
para mí, los zapatos apretados, tight,
tight.
apretados, son demasiado dolorosos.
Son sí, sí, eso es. El famoso tenista Rafael Nadal siempre prefiere usar los zapatos como una talla o a veces dos tallas más chicas.
Ew.
Pero también tiene muchos problemas con los pies.
Y
Ah, bueno, no lo puedo soportar. I just cannot stand that. Ok, a ver. Siguiente. Oh, sí, esto es muy filosófico. Una pregunta muy filosófica. Ah, ¿Qué prefieres? ¿La paz en el mundo o recibir $1 billón en tu cuenta, in your bank account? ¿La paz en el mundo o recibir $1 billón? Lori.
Hoy en día en el mundo hay demasiada guerra. Prefiero la paz al dinero.
Ujú. Ok, bien, lo entiendo, sí. Ah, ¿Alguien más? Anybody else?
Yo también prefiero la paz en el mundo.
Bien, ok. La respuesta correcta, ¿no? Todos querríamos, sí, claro, $1 millón. Everybody would like $1 million. Bien. Ah, Aunque a veces, bueno, en el futuro quizás $1 millón no vale mucho. Maybe that's not worth so much. En el futuro, if you go far enough down the line, sí, con la inflación y todo. Pero la paz en el mundo. Y tener la guerra constante en el mundo causa problemas con el precio de cosas, con muchos asuntos, with many things. Ok, esto siguiente es muy interesante, sí, también, sí. Viajar 1000 años al pasado. ¿Prefieres viajar 1000 años al pasado? Do you prefer to travel 1,000 years into the past? ¿O 90 años al futuro? Ajá. ¿Qué prefieres? ¿Viajar al futuro o al pasado? Lori y entonces Mark.
1000 años pasado, la vida era muy difícil, especialmente para las mujeres. Por eso quiero ir al futuro.
de acuerdo.
Sí, 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 cuando pensamos en la posición de las mujeres en el año como 1000, ¿sí? Mm, ah, no me apetece, that's not very appealing. Bueno, a ver, Marcos.
Prefiero ir al futuro para ver si el mundo sobrevive.
Si el mundo sobrevive, ¿sí? Todo que está pasando. Sí, ¿y cómo va a cambiar? Para los nietos, para, sí, las generaciones en el futuro. Ah, eso sí. 1000 años al pasado, ya sabemos. We already know. Bueno, sí, Nora.
El Tour de London, de Londres,
Londres.
uh, construyó, how do you say? I can see it, but I can't say it.
Construyó, built.
Construyó en 1000. So we could go there.
Ah, sí. Sí, 1000 años al pasado. El problema con 1000 años al pasado, creo, es que primero
La
hay,
vida es corta.
la vida era muy, muy dura en esos
Sí.
años, ¿sí? Dura por la falta de oportunidad en trabajar, dura por el salario, difficult because of what you were paid, sí, un salario que no había salarios casi. Y también en cuestiones de la salud, ¿no? Ah, ah, muy difícil. No tengo ningún interés en viajar 1000 años al pasado. A ver, bueno, pero, y por fin, aquí. Ah, esto sí, muy difícil. Acabar. ¿Qué prefieres? What do you prefer? ¿Qué prefieres? ¿Acabar con el racismo o acabar con el machismo? And I think this is asked from the Mexican point of view, where the machismo culture is, of course, a big thing. Sí, Lori.
So I wanted to say that the racism is getting worse, and I was trying to use a become word, but Google Translate gave me something different. So let me give you what I said, and then you can try
Okay.
and help me figure that out. El racismo es más disruptivo que el machismo. And this is what Google gave me. Está emporrando. But I was trying to use y se hace peor. Like, can you use hacerse? Like, it's becoming.
Sí, se hace peor, sí, es posible. Ok, esto sí entiendo. I would say the first option is probably the first choice of a general speaker. Not to say that both aren't correct, but peor, it's kind of okay, if you look at the words themselves, you can figure out why. Peor es worse, see? And that's just a description, see? Esto es peor que el otro. This one is worse than the other one, see? Peor. The way we get from description into an action word, into a verb, is this: empeorar. Empeorar is to worsen. We don't use that very much. To get worse. So become worse, get worse. Empeorar is probably going to be a first choice. Sí. Hoy en día, por ejemplo, hoy en día creo que las cosas se empeoran. The things are getting worse. Eso. Empeorar, sí. Pero todo se hace peor. Everything is getting worse, is made worse. Sí, funciona también. That works too. Okay. A ver. Empeorar, to get worse. And it's all wrapped up in that one word. Sí.
Marilyn, por qué, why is the phrase acabar con?
Acabar con, to finish with something, to be done with it.
As opposed to just to end, but this is to
Yes.
be,
Sí.
to, okay.
Acabar con, to finish with, to do away with. To do away with, acabar con. Acabar by itself is to finish. And when you say finish something off, meaning you do away with it, you get rid of it. See? Acabar con. Our little con word gets in there. Buena pregunta. Good question. No sé cuál es peor. Creo que sí. Prefiero acabar con el racismo. Creo que sí podemos acabar con el racismo, entonces va a curar otras cosas. I think it could cure other things, pero quién sabe, quién sabe. Bueno, ok. ¿Otro comentario? ¿Hay otro comentario o no? ¿O no? Ok. Fantástico. Vamos a cambiar de tema. We're going to skip over a little. different theme. We're going to finish off our next issue that we didn't quite finish with last week, but it was a lot, was a bit much. So let's take a look. We're going to take a look at some of these common phrases. And these phrases were designed, and the video and the phrases were designed to make you think of just these turns of phrases, these words, and like use some examples. We're just going to review what they were so that everybody is kind of on the same page with that. Expresiones útiles, yeah, useful expressions. Some of these tended to use some subjunctive and some did not. And that's the bigger question of what we're going to wade into by using this, because some just use indicativo, indicative, like you expect, and some don't. And you just kind of have to get used to it. So last week we worked on a lo mejor for a maybe idea, right? A lo mejor is used a lot, okay? Me cuesta trabajo, and we may drop that word trabajo. It's possible you'll hear it just as me cuesta instead of with trabajo. De ahora en adelante, parece mentira que, and this is one of those ones that has to use subjunctive. We're going to try to think at the end of class about why maybe that uses subjunctive. Cuanto antes, as soon as possible, por si acaso, just in case. And that's where we left off with our por si acaso. So we're going to work on a couple of these. Actually, the last page is not as useful. This estar para is not as useful as the other ones, but slide 4 did have some interesting things. We're skipping the como si, even though it is very common, because that uses a past subjunctive, and that's a tricky one to form. So we're going to come back to that maybe a different day. Pero, siempre que, as long as, and I've cushioned in here this idea of we have to use a subjunctive with this. Siempre que, if you're thinking in a normal English way, sounds like it is saying always that. But what it really is used to say is the idea of as long as. Okay, so Compro, un ejemplo aquí, compro el refresco siempre que traigas tú el hielo, right? I'll bring the soda. I'll bring the soda as long as you bring something else, el hielo, the ice, okay? But we have to remember that if you use the siempre que needs to have that word que. All right. If we drop the word que, it simply means always, and then somebody is going to interpret that word a different way. So you can't really drop the que to get to the as long as idea. ¿Hay otro ejemplo que ustedes tienen? Any other example that you guys have? With siempre que, sí, Diana.
Voy a comprar un carro nuevo siempre que consiga un préstamo.
Consiga, as long as I get a loan,
Alone.
un préstamo, sí, bien. Bueno, otro ejemplo, hay otro ejemplo, con siempre que, Lori.
Vamos a tener la reunión en el parque siempre que no llueva.
Ok, siempre que, sí, no llueva, bien, as long as it doesn't rain. Bien, otro ejemplo, Nora. Oh, and you're on mute. Estás muteada, perdón.
I'm outside and there were birds earlier, so I
Ah,
muted it. I'm trying to use the past, which I guess I'm not sure.
ooh,
Compré toallas siempre que yo pinté el baño. I bought towels because I painted the bathroom. As
but
long as I painted the bathroom, I guess I got a whole bunch of messes here. Really, I
okay.
want to say maybe I will buy towels.
We can't use siempre que to say because. Siempre que is going to mean as long as. So it makes it a conditional sort of situation.
So maybe
Um,
it's really I will buy towels as long as I'm painting the bathroom.
you could do that one. See.
And then I don't know how to make those verbs. I will
Okay.
buy.
Uh,
Compraré.
compro toallas nuevas. Siempre que, and let's say you want your husband to do it.
Oh, okay.
Siempre que pintes el baño. Que
Okay.
pintes el interior del baño.
So it's
Sí.
better with two different people.
Works better a little bit with two different people. Sí.
Okay.
Sí. Un poquito mejor. Sí. Yeah, and this is why that subjunctive can be really uncomfortable for us. So that's why we're going to start to look at that towards the end of class. There are situations we want to create some situations where it's easy for you to see why it is being used. And maybe work into some harder ones afterwards. Otro ejemplo con siempre que. Is there any other example with siempre que? No. Okay. Tener ganas de, to feel like doing something. And this is very easy because you don't need anything goofy. You just need an infinitive to tell what the action is that you feel like doing, right? Tenemos ganas de salir esta noche. We feel like going out tonight. ¿Sí? Tenemos ganas de salir. And no funny conjugations, no funny tenses. Tenemos ganas de salir esta noche. If you use it in the past, probably you're going to make that imperfecto. ¿Ok? Bien. Como teníamos ganas de salir. We felt like going out last night. So you can use it present, past. No importa mucho, doesn't matter. And that second verb is an infinitive anyway. So, vale. Hay otro ejemplo de alguien. Sí, Kathleen.
I'm not sure I have this right, but en el fin de semana tengo ganas relajarme.
De relajarme, sí. Ganas de relajarme. Felt like
Okay.
relaxing. Sí. And you had your relajarme because you're the one who wanted to relax, right? So, bien, bien, fantástico. Diana.
Tengo ganas de hornear un pastel para tu cumpleaños.
Sí, muy bien, muy bien. Hornear un pastel, bake a cake pastry, ¿sí? Bien. Otro ejemplo. Lori.
No tengo ganas de ir a compras en los tardes.
Por la tarde, in the afternoon, por la tarde, sí,
Sí.
en la tarde, por la tarde, sí. No tengo ganas de, I don't feel like, sí, no tengo ganas de ir al supermercado por la tarde. Hay mucha gente por la tarde, siempre, ¿sí? Es más difícil comprar la comida en el supermercado por la tarde. Bien. Ah, Otro ejemplo, tener ganas de. Es fácil, es fácil. Okay. Last one here is a tougher one. Se me antoja. Se me antoja is also a feel like verb, as in you have a craving for something. It can be used with things other than food, but it's used a lot with talking about uh, food and drinks that you have a yen for, a craving for. Okay. ¿Qué se antoja, por ejemplo? And the se me is the tough part. That little se is, we don't normally combine se and me except for accidental phrases. And this kind of goes into that territory. But just keep in mind, keep the se there. And then that second pronoun will be talking about whoever feels like has a yen for, has a craving for something. ¿Sí? Por ejemplo, aquí, ¿qué se te antoja probar? What do you feel like trying out de este restaurante? ¿Sí? Now, here is where it becomes like a gustar kind of verb. ¿Qué se te antoja? What do you feel like? What do you have a craving for? Right? And if it's just an action like probar or a single thing, it'll be se te antoja, right? But it might turn into a plural. For example, in the answer I've got for this, and I have that there so you can see it both in singular and plural. A ver, let's see. A ver, se me antojan los tacos pastores. I feel like some pastores tacos. ¿Sí?
What's pastores? ¿Qué es
Pastores,
pastores?
pastores es un tipo de taco. It's a type of taco they order. Is that the one that's just pork? Creo que sí.
Pastor.
Sí, de cerdo. Sí. Bien. But there it's antojan plural because it's talking about what you have the end for is a plural thing. So know that it's kind of like one of those gustar things, very much like that. Bien. This is a little harder to do an example with, but if somebody's got an extra example to throw out, that would be great. Hay algo. Sí, Marcos.
Uh, se me antoja comer el chicken fried steak in Tex AZ Grill.
Bien.
En el restaurante Tex AZ Grill.
Bueno, fantástico. Bien, me gusta mucho. Bueno, Diana.
Se me antoja un copa de vino después de puestar mis impuestos. No, mis
Ah,
impuestos y mis impuestos.
sí, bien, buen ejemplo. Me gusta mucho, sí. Gracias, sí. Y Lori.
Se me antoja comida chatarra salada, pero mi mamá se le antojan dulces de chocolate.
Ah, bien, sí, a tu mamá otra cosa, ¿sí? Ah, bien, bien. Bueno, ¿hay más ejemplos o no? That one in particular is a favorite with food type items. Okay, a ver. Um, and the darle vueltas a siguiente, siguiente. Our next one here, we've got three more. We're not going to spend much time on the very last one because it's limited. But aquí, darle vueltas a, uh, plus a thing. The thing that'll come after a is a thing, yeah? And it means to overthink, to dwell on something. And you always use a le with it, okay? Uh, just don't try to translate that literally because something is, vueltas means something doing this. Churning around and around and around. Vueltas is churning around and around and around, going in circles. Okay. And if you're dwelling on something, it's going around and around in your head. That's kind of the idea behind this particular expression. Darle vueltas a. Carlino siempre le da vueltas a lo que va a ponerse para la cita. Carolina always overthinks whatever she's going to wear for her date. ¿Sí? Bien. Hay otro ejemplo. Sí, Lori.
Ah, le dije a mi esposo, no le das vueltas y eliges una comida.
Eso
Should that
sí.
be command?
Sí, elige un plato. Choose a dish. En un restaurante, por favor, por ejemplo, ¿sí?
Sí.
Sí,
Sí.
sí. Al fin, at the end, ¿sí? No, o quizás, sí, no, no le des vueltas. Don't think about it too much. Así. Bueno, hay otro ejemplo, ¿o no? That one's a little bit tougher to get an example of, but darle vueltas is,
Be-
churn something over in your head. Sí, Marcos.
Before you jump to the next one,
Sí, sí.
I'm still quite a little confused on the kind of the syntax here. So in your example, Carolina, who's a person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Always, and then le da vueltas. Why is that vueltas is kind of a two form?
Oh, that actually is not a tu form, even though it has an S at the end, because it's a noun. Vueltas are like revolutions, turns. It's a thing. It's a plural thing instead of a tu verb. Le da vueltas. It churns around and around in her head. And the vueltas are many, many turns. And that's why it's overthinking, because you think about it over and over and over again. Sí,
Okay, that helps.
sí. Yeah, you have to think of vueltas like I don't know, a hamster running on a little circular, what do they call those? Little treadmill kind of thing. Yeah. That little animals sometimes run on. It's kind of like that, vueltas. Turn around and around and around. Tener en cuenta is a little bit easier to use. Tener en cuenta is to take something into account. Okay. Debes de tener en cuenta que los precios van a subir. You ought to take into account that prices are going to go up. ¿Sí? El ejemplo aquí. Okay. Often this one might be said as a command. Laurie, you asked, how would things be as a command? For this, if you say, hey, take this into account, if you're talking to a friend or somebody called by their first name, it'll be ten en cuenta. Ten en cuenta. If you were using a formal structure instead, it would be tenga en cuenta. Okay, para que sepan, so you know. That would be the command forms that you would use if you, because often we say, hey, think about this when you do something, right? And tener en cuenta means take something into account. ¿Hay otro ejemplo o no?
Sí, sí, sí.
Sí, Diana.
Debes de tener en cuenta que va a estar oscuro a las 8 en el punto.
Eso, sí, sí, bien, bien. Cuando alguien está manejando o algo así, muy bien, muy bien. Bueno, hay otro ejemplo. Lori.
Hay que tener en cuenta que la salud cuando decidir recibir seguridad social.
Hay que tener en cuenta, yeah, if you just say health, you don't need the K word. Hay que tener en cuenta la salud. La salud. Have to take your health into account. Sí, bien. We need the K when we attach another little sentence. So,
So if there's a verb, then you would need the K.
sí. And there, you're
Okay.
just saying you have to take your health into account. There's no verb there. It's just your health. Hay que tener en cuenta la salud. Boom. Nada más, nothing else. Sí. Bien. Bueno, a ver, ¿ok? ¿Siguiente o no? ¿Sí? Siguiente. Estar por, I think is a little more common than our very last one. That's why we're going to spend maybe a little more time on this. Estar por plus an infinitive. It means something is about to happen. Something is about to begin. Estamos por comer. How did that get changed out? I didn't. Estamos por comer cuando llegó José. Estábamos por comer. Estábamos por comer. We were just about to eat. Okay? It means that something is pending, I guess you could say. Estábamos por comer cuando llegó José. And you can keep it even shorter. Estamos por comer. We're just about to eat. Somebody else walks into your house and everybody is really sitting at the table, but they haven't served their food yet. Estamos por comer. We're just about to eat. Somebody walks into the office late. Estamos por empezar la reunión. We're just about to start the meeting. Así. Otro ejemplo. Sí, Marcos.
Well, I have an example and then I have a question after that. So, por ejemplo, estaba por salir cuando mi teléfono sonó.
Perfecto. Perfecto. Muy bien.
So my question now is, like your example and my example were talking about something in the past, so using imperfecto.
Mhm.
But this can be done in present also, right?
Sí, sí, sí. You walk out your driveway, your neighbor waves to you and starts talking. You say, lo siento, estoy por manejar a la oficina. Sorry, sorry, I can't talk, see? Estoy por salir a la oficina. Estoy por manejar a la oficina. I'm just about to drive.
Right. So it can be like I'm about to, or we're about to
Sí.
do something or whatever, but it doesn't have to be then like there doesn't have to be that cuando phrase afterwards, right? Just
No, there
hey,
doesn't have to be.
we're about to go.
Sí, sí.
Okay.
Estamos por ir. We're about estamos por irnos. We're about to leave. Yeah. You know, sorry I can't invite you in. We're about to leave. Estamos por irnos. Sí. And you don't need anything else. Es posible, es posible. Muy bien. Ok. Buena pregunta. Muy buena pregunta. This one I'm going to spend less time on because it's something people say generally. I want to say when you're kind of running out of patience with somebody for on account of something. And, you know, I don't think it's as useful in a lot of situations. But there's a difference between estar por and estar para. Uh, Estar para, to not be in the mood for something, right? And usually it has to do with when you think somebody's fooling around and you just don't want to deal with it. And there aren't a whole lot of other applications for that that I can really come up with. But el ejemplo aquí, sí. Chicos, basta de jugar con esto. Enough of playing with that thing, with this thing. No estoy para bromas. No estoy para bromas. I'm not in the mood for jokes.
That's like a real serious, I'm not in the mood
Yeah,
for.
you know, you're being pretty short with somebody if you
Yeah,
use
can
that.
can I just let me run an example here,
Sí,
which
sí.
I'm not sure it kind of works in that context. Estoy muy cansado. No estoy para ver televisión.
Sí se puede, sí. Sí, bien. Sí, me gusta. Buen ejemplo. Buen ejemplo. Ok. Sí, perdón, Diana.
Something like this then. Amigas van a jugar en el parque. No estoy feliz. Ahora. I'm not happy now. You go play in the park or something like. I
No
mean, is
estoy
that how
feliz
you
just
use
says
it?
I'm not happy.
Yeah.
Ah, no estoy para juegos. I'm not in the mood for games.
See.
Algo. ¿Sí? Ah, así, kind of like that. Yeah, it's got more limited use, I think, than a lot of the other ones that were in that list, which is why I didn't have at the end create a new example because, yeah, not as necessary. But
Yeah. Can I
okay.
ask one other question on
Sí,
that one?
sí, claro.
I was enjoying that one for whatever reason. But no es, like in your example, no estoy para bromas. So not in the mood for a noun. And my example, or in my example, I used a verb, you know, no estoy para ver TV.
Sí,
So
sí, sí.
that could be either a noun
Sí,
or a verb, right?
sí. No estoy, yeah, but you know, like I said, it's kind of you know, you're cutting somebody off essentially a little bit. Hey, I've kind of had it up to here, sort of idea. Yeah, I'm not. I don't want to do this. You know, it's a negative kind of idea. So telling somebody you don't want to put up with something. Yeah,
So it's kind of like a whole lot stronger than no quiero something or other.
yeah. Sí, sí. Ah, no estoy para tonterías. I'm not for foolishness if people are goofing around. You know, it's kind of like saying you got to get back to a serious situation. You know, no more fooling around with stuff kind of idea. Okay. A ver. Bueno, adelante. Adelante al video. Let's move forward to the video because you had specific questions. I want to pick up your questions first, and I want to point out some other things later, but I want to pick up this. Esto sí fue un video de las opiniones, un video de opiniones de hábitos de los habitantes de la Ciudad de México y los hábitos de dejar una propina o no dejar una propina. About leaving tipping, when to tip. Okay, Laura, you said you have some
Oh, I have a lot.
That's
Tiene
okay.
muchos. 1:15 segundos.
A mí también.
¿Bajo
Ajá.
qué criterio?
Okay.
Un poco más. ¿Bajo qué criterio?
Under what criteria?
Oh.
No. Bajo. Yeah. Under what criteria? If it falls under this category. Sí.
Okay.
And I know, yeah, they translate and then on what. I guess we might say according to what kind of criteria, maybe more often, but yeah. Okay. Otra pregunta.
1:56, the use of nos brinden, because I thought that was like to toast.
156?
Yeah.
Okay.
Más lujito, o si es un buffet, a veces igual y te vas más abajo.
Pues depende de la atención que nos brinden.
Sí. Okay, entiendo. Sí. All right, let's look at how they translate that. And this is not an AI translation, so this is like a pretty good translation. Pues depende de la atención que nos brinden. Well, it depends on the service that we get. And that, yeah. And you would think maybe servicio, but here he said, depende de la atención que nos brinden. Brindar is to toast. You're right. It's like not your coffee cup, but you got a glass of something more alcoholic, yeah? Brindar is to toast. Yeah, this is an interesting turn of phrase. The service that we get doesn't sound as flowery as la atención que nos brinden. Brindar there is kind of like to shower somebody with attention. It kind of carries with it a more a more attentive sort of service, not just service, but showering somebody with service, sort of like saying that. So when a waiter hangs on your questions, really thinks carefully, they are very careful and everything is very beautifully done. Yeah, it is sort of a celebratory thing because they're showering you with service. Does that make sense? It's yeah. Okay.
Just let it run because I have 202.
Okay. Yeah. The attention they shower on us. Yeah, it's a little more flowery way of expressing it, but yeah. Hay otra pregunta, Lori. Do you have another?
Well, just go with Diane's because
Okay.
mine are further along.
Okay. Sí, Diana.
202.
202.
Si es muy buena, pues trato de dejar más del 10%.
See, they've even asterisked the del.
Oh.
Es muy raro que lo baje de 15.
Okay. That is when they put an asterisk in there, what they're saying is that the speaker didn't actually say that word, but they should have.
Oh.
Aha. It would be kind of like uh, native speakers may actually make technically an error, or because they're just talking fast or off the cuff, they might not say something in the exact, precise way that should be said. So, how that really should have been expressed, es muy raro que lo baje del 15. And del because it's el 15.
It would be of the 15%.
Right.
Yeah,
Uh,
okay.
okay. So she only said de 15, de 15. She didn't say Adele. And it should have
Ah,
been Adele. So in this particular channel, when somebody makes a little boo-boo or they just glaze over something and they don't bother to use a certain word, but it's more proper, the more proper is put in as with an asterisk.
okay.
Kind of like if we were going, if I said something like, well, I'm gonna go at 2, and I'm gonna will get the asterisk of going to,
Mhm.
because I said gonna, but it isn't grammatically correct to say gonna. Even though we write it out, if that appears in a novel, is what somebody actually said, oh, Gonna, but that's not proper English, right? And they
Yeah.
would put in an asterisk going to. That's it. Sí. Okay. Buena pregunta. Otra.
And
Something else. Sí, Nora.
let's see. I had one at 217. It was just the verb SEAN, que sean amables.
Oh,
That
yes.
is that
Sí.
Yeah.
what kind of
Uh,
verb tense is that?
That is a subjunctive.
That's what I thought.
217? Yeah.
Yeah,
And actually, this video was littered with subjunctive. It was everywhere.
I thought so
It
too,
was
but I wasn't sure.
it was tossed around everywhere. Let's go
Prefiero
to
avanzar a
the
otro
short.
lugar. Entonces, por lo regular, estoy en lugares donde me siento a gusto y bien atendida.
Que sean amables contigo.
Que sean amables.
Yeah.
Sean comes from ser,
Okay.
and this is subjunctive. Que sean amables, that they are kind to you, that they are generous and kind and nice, that they are nice with you. See? Now,
So wouldn't it be if they are kind to you?
what?
And that would make it subjunctive? If they are kind to you?
Que sean amables, yeah, that they are kind to you, contigo, with you. Okay. And there's really nothing in front of the K, is there?
No.
So that seems sort of out of place, but this is a this kind of structure of just starting out with the K happens quite a lot. Okay, and it's because he's answering a question, like, when do
Mm.
you tip? And it would be like us answering back, well, if they're nice to you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or when they're nice to you, because they're nice to you. All right. So he left off the first part, I tip when, and that is left off because it's understood from the question. He's just answering the core part of that. So you may actually see in a situation like this, it actually leads off with the K, and the K kind of almost immediately tells you there's going to be a subjunctive idea afterwards when they start with that. So let's take a look, because actually he's got two subjunctives. Que sean amables contigo, that they are kind to you, y que el servicio no demore tanto. Demorar is to delay,
Mm.
to be
Oh,
late. Que el servicio no demore tanto, that the service doesn't lag. It's not late. It doesn't take so long. Yeah. Demorar means something is lagging behind. Demorar is used a lot to talk about a flight being delayed. They use that a lot with videos talking about delays in flights when they get set back in time from the original departure date. See? Okay. Otro ejemplo, another time marker.
237 is my next one.
Okay.
The a gusto en el lugar.
A gusto en el
Feel
lugar,
at
¿no?
ease.
Sí, sí, sí. A gusto en el lugar. A gusto. Gusto is not a verb there. Gusto is pleasure. A gusto en el lugar. Yeah, there is no great translation for that, except the way they translate it is fine. You feel at ease.
Is a gusto en el lugar, is that a chunk?
I would say so, yes. A gusto en el lugar. ¿Sí? Me siento a gusto. I feel at ease. I feel at home. I feel at ease. Yeah. Sí. I feel comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah,
A
because I'm
gusto.
used to mucho gusto, whenever you meet
Yeah,
someone,
mucho,
and it didn't
right.
really
It's
fit.
the same gusto that comes in the chunk of mucho gusto. See, mucho gusto, much pleasure, meaning pleasure to meet you. Right? Sí, bien.
But you said gusto is not a verb here. It's an
Correct.
adjective?
It's a noun.
Oh, okay.
A gusto. At ease, at your comfort, at your pleasure.
Okay.
Sí. Perfecto. Muy bien. Buenas preguntas. Good questions. I did not think people are going to ask all of these, but they're very, very good. Any other insights that?
Well, I have 3 from 455, 501, and 515. So that whole section, there were just like some different phrases in there that didn't make sense.
Let's let that run.
Trabajo de quienes los han atendido de calidad.
Muy importante porque creo que sí los sueldos están súper castigados.
Super castigados. How is
Super
that
castigados.
Or it's super low because castigado is punishment, right?
Yeah. Castigar means to punish. Super castigados, this is a real colloquial kind of turn of phrase. They are like in the toilet. Super castigar is to punish, and they are super castigados. They're lousy.
Sounds like
Los sueldos
castigate.
están super. The wages are at a lousy. They are at a lousy level. And she put super on the front of it just to amplify how bad they are. And that goes to Mark's comment about, when to tip. The attitude on tipping is one thing in Europe and a different thing in Latin America. But in Mexico in particular, it is super important to tip for a lot of things, and sometimes for things that we might not think about, just because the wage structure is such that people very much depend on tips there. It is just a vital thing for all of those folks. Okay, and I should just let it roll here to go through the other.
Yeah, because the other one, the next phrase is el peso que nos dan.
Y creo que ahí está un poquito como el error, ¿no? Que a veces siento que el peso que nos dan más.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and you have to kind of be quick with the pause here, don't you? Because they move on. Yeah. Que a veces sometimes.
It's like, isn't el peso weight? Like, to me, literally the weight that they give us. But there it's responsibility.
Peso means different things in different contexts. Peso, of course, can be the monetary unit, but here it is not. Peso here is a weight, and she's talking about the responsibility. Un peso. Yeah, think of something like un peso. Like we sometimes have an English phrase about, you have a weight on your chest, something that's weighing on you. And that's how they're using the idea of the word peso there. Something that is a weight. That's, something oppressive.
One says a burden.
Que nos dan más
Yeah,
como clientes a
burden.
nosotros que a los mismos jefes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pues aquí
Should I let it roll? See?
Sí, 5:15.
sí es muy importante prácticamente para todo.
Yeah. Here it's very important practically for everything, meaning tipping.
Pues a veces es como que muy poquito lo que les pagan.
You ain't there yet or no?
Almost 3 more seconds.
Y entonces no está de más dejar una ayudita extra.
No está de más dejar. It doesn't hurt.
No está de más dejar. Yeah. That's just a little chunk. No está de, yeah. You don't hear estar de all that well. No, you don't hear that very often, do you? No está de más dejar una ayudita extra. There's no great way to translate that. It's a little chunk. Yeah, and how they translated it is fine. It doesn't hurt. Yeah, it's like saying it's no big deal to leave behind a little bit of extra help. Es así. Okay. Any others?
That's all for me.
Okay. Alguien más? Anybody else? Actually, you had great questions. See, Kathleen.
Just back to the first one that said bajo qué criterio. Could you say also a qué criterio or en qué criterio?
I need to get back to where
That was at 1:15.
¿Con qué criterio?
Could we use something instead of bajo?
Yes.
Bajo. ¿Bajo qué criterio? Tengo que pensar en esto. I gotta think about this one a little bit. Teniendo en cuenta qué criterio, taking into account what criteria,
Okay.
teniendo en cuenta might be an alternative. See? ¿Con qué criterio? ¿Con qué criterio?
Okay. Okay.
Sí, posible. Yeah, probably you don't have to use just one, but bajo would kind of be like saying putting it under a heading. Yeah. And that's why bajo, because when you put it under. Yeah.
Okay. Gracias.
Bien. Okay. One thing I want you guys to do is to actually listen to this again sometime during the week. And I want you to notice every time you hear a subjunctive, because they are loaded. It is loaded, 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 loaded. I'm going to start to point out nothing there, but you have to just let it roll. Actually, one of the best examples was this guy. Starting right here is a good example of how this is loaded up on subjunctive. And you may ask why? Why is that loaded up with verbs with like sean? And the sean is probably the most glaring, difficult one there because that is one of the very few, because there are only a few irregular forms in subjunctive. There aren't as many irregulars in present subjunctive, okay? But sean is one of the few. And then that word lemore, and you would only really know that if you're familiar with the verb demorar, and it's an AR verb, but it's got an e ending instead of an a ending. It's not demora, which would be indicative, plain old present tense, versus demore, that it may be taking a long time. Okay, if we let him
Sean
roll
amables
on.
contigo, que el servicio no demore tanto, que los alimentos lleguen en buen estado.
Que los alimentos lleguen, that the food arrives at your table, comes to your table. See? Los alimentos lleguen, not los alimentos llegan. And why is he using subjunctive here? Because he's talking about something that is purely hypothetical, something that is not really happening as we speak. Okay? So you'll notice that this is loaded. So I want you to watch it again and kind of check out how many. I'm going to see if I can find a couple more. But
How about at 7:20? I thought that one was maybe locate, trige.
Okay.
In 6:28, a pasar de que tenga un mal servicio at 6:28.
Yo por eso siempre, a pesar de que tenga un mal servicio, dejo.
Sí.
Tenga is
Siempre, a pesar de que tenga un mal.
Tenga is definitely, and I have to be quick with hitting it there because he goes like, a pesar de que tenga mal servicio, a pesar de que, even though. And that pesar comes from the same root as the word peso, wait. A pesar de, a pesar de que, in spite of, even though I might be getting bad service. Yeah. The tenga, we could express in English as the I might be getting bad service. That's why it's using subjunctive.
El servicio dejó aunque sea el 10% de propina.
Yeah. Aunque sea el 10% de la propina.
Well, since
Even
we're
if it
here,
might be just 10%. Sí.
sorry, that aunque sea, so
Sí.
that's even if it's just, is that kind of a chunk
Even if
too?
it's just, even if it's only yeah. Aunque can be used. Aunque is one of the we will not examine that in depth now because aunque is one of the more difficult things to explain. Sometimes it uses subjunctive and sometimes it does not. Okay. Why? Well, okay. Why that happens is what we're going to start to address. I'm going to give you a different listening video for this week. It will not, it will be about roughly around this length, and it's going to be full of subjunctive stuff. Full. So, here's what I want to remind you of. Subjunctive is often taught very late in the process of learning Spanish. And there's actually, I would say sometimes a debate as to we should really tell people more because it pops up all the time and very commonly in conversation is used very, very commonly. My friend from Chile said, well, probably 40% of our conversation is subjunctive. That's pretty high. That's almost half. That's almost half. Well, then that becomes a very scary thing because, and it's scary because English in present, not in past, in present has very poor markers, or you could say, you could even say we don't have it. We do. We do have subjunctive, but nobody thinks about using it. And it will morph into different forms. It'll morph into things like maybe or like may. I may go to the store. I might go to the store. But that's about the closest we get in English. And sometimes we even just use infinitives and not subjunctive at all. Nora, sí.
My daughter that sells insurance to Spanish speakers says she
Ah,
used subjunctive all
all
day
the
long
time. Yes.
because none of that stuff, your infirmities haven't happened yet.
Right. Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I thought it was interesting. She was proud to hear that we were learning, working on it.
Perfecto. Perfect. It is okay. There is a very good video. I am not going to give you for homework yet because it kind of gets in the weeds. It's very philosophical, but it is in fact quite good. The way we teach subjunctive is with like lots of, well, you got to have these situations use subjunctive. And actually, it is a good way to teach subjunctive just because in English we have such a poor handle to relate anything to it. But at its core, the video I'd love to give you, but it would probably be a bit too much to bite off and chew right now. The core is that what we call indicative in Spanish, indicative just means something that really is happening. It is part of the real world. You know, if I look outside and I say, está soleado, or hace sol, it really is sunny. It really is. That's what's happening. Yeah. So indicative might use presente, right? It could use imperfecto, imperfect. It could use pretérito. It could use all of those compound tenses with haber and a participle. Okay. Uh, Indicative uses lots and lots of tenses. All right. Subjuntivo also uses various tenses. It's got a present, it's got compounds, it's got past, it's got all of those too. But while indicative, indicativo, tells you what is actually part of reality, truly is happening. Imperfecto is fuzzy. I'm sorry, imperfecto. Subjuntivo, subjunctive is very fuzzy and blurry and not really happening at this time. That's why if your daughter is selling insurance, we're selling you this so that if you die, your family has this salary. If you get injured, you're paid this amount. And when she talks about if you're injured, that's not really the part of their reality right now. It's a
Right.
very hypothetical situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is why subjunctive exists. It exists to talk about things that that could happen, but aren't really part of our reality. And that really is the core of why we use subjunctive. Even for something as simple as, I hope you are well today. Your friend has been feeling so hot. I hope you're well today. Espero que estés bien. Espero que estés bien. I hope you are well. I know you weren't, and I don't really know what the answer is going to be, so I'm asking you about it, yeah? Espero que estés bien. I hope you are well. And in the past, maybe you weren't so feeling so great, so I'm hoping that has altered. But I don't really know at this point if that is part of our reality, what is really occurring. Okay, bien. So now, because we have such a poor framework in English to express that, we don't have like these different verb forms that pop up all over. That is why it is hard for us to figure out when it is used and when it is not. So sometimes it is helpful just to see of a lot of examples, which is why you're going to get the video. You're going to be listening for the listening comprehension this week. But we're going to start off with just how can you recognize that a verb is subjunctive? And it's a very subtle thing. because it just means you're using an opposite ending if it's a present subjunctive. So we're going to look only at present subjunctive, not past, because that's a thing too, but it's harder to form. ¿Cómo se forma? How do you form it? So the very, very simple answer, and you're going to get this whole slide set, is that formation of the subjunctive is what you should recognize first. How do we even form it? How do we recognize it when we're hearing it? All right. And the important thing for English speakers is that you can't go wrong if you start with yo. You should always start before you form subjunctive. You should first start with a yo form in present tense. And if you start with that yo form, there's very little chance that you will go wrong and mess up. Okay, so that's why we say start with a yo. If you start with a yo presente, a yo verb, and I should add, see, in present tense, presente. What you do after that is you drop the o ending off, and then you just add the opposite vowel. All right. And the reason why we say start with yo is, well, it's kind of obvious here. Let's take a look at an obvious, like a regular verb. Cantar, to sing. To form the subjunctive, if you start with canto, present tense yo, just drop that o, and you look at cantar and say, AR verb. Oh, I'm going to add on all the things that it would be if it were an ER verb. That's all you're doing. Cante, cantes, cante, cantemos, cantéis, canten. Okay. Bien. Poder. That's a vanilla kind of regular verb. But the reason we start with yo is because stem changes will happen. So if you start with yo, you don't, you start with puedo and you've already got your stem change in there, right? But whereas cantar was an AR verb, poder is an ER verb, you're going to use endings for ER verbs. Sí, Nora.
Is it the same exact as a command, or are there differences?
It is, yeah.
But not exactly, maybe.
It is. It isn't a command. They're always kept as separate things. But yeah, that formation is the same kind of process you go through with usted commands.
Okay.
Except now this, instead of being a command that's always directed at a you, or well, it could be a we. Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of being you're telling somebody to do something, it is talking about other people who could be doing this action, but that action isn't really happening yet. Okay.
So there's more people that, that they form and all that stuff.
You need a conjugation. So whereas a imperativo, the imperative, the commands are given to a you person in most cases, right?
Okay.
This could be talking about me. It could be talking about you. It could be talking about all of us. It could be talking about Joe Schmo down the street. It could be talking about your dogs. It could be talking about anybody doing that. So it's not just a you conjugation. We need a full load of conjugations, right? Instead of just talking about you. So we get to pueda, see, for yo, puedas, pueda again. So you'll notice that the yo and the el, ea, usted do the same thing, right? Podamos, because nosotros does not, is outside the boot. Okay. It goes back to the podáis for tú or vosotros, and we don't use that in Latin American parlance, and then puedan, see? But poder, the important thing, poder and ER verb will go to the endings. And you can't go wrong because stem change is in with this in presente for yo, so you won't forget the stem change when it's in the boot. Yeah, outside the boot, nosotros doesn't need the stem change. The other reason you can't go wrong if you start with yo, we've got venir, yeah, to come. And if you start with yo, vengo, everything is going to be based on that G in vengo. All right, we start with vengo, drop the o, Venir is an IR verb. Instead of endings, we go with endings, right? So it becomes venga, vengas, venga again, vengamos, vengan. Yeah. So if you start with what is the yo form in presente, you can always get to the correct form of a subjunctive verb. Okay? Bien. So can't go wrong. Here's where you can go wrong. These are the only irregulars that are out there. And it used to be given to us kids in high school as dishes. Dishes for dar, ir, ser. Haber is really only, well, haber is needed only in certain things. It's used for compound tenses and it's used for the, there is, there are situations. Estar, saber. Okay, so these are the irregulars where if you start with yo, you won't get to how to form the subjunctive. Why? Because when you start with yo, you haven't got an O at the end. Oh, that's why. Because yo is doy, yo is boy, yo is soy. Haber doesn't really have, well, not in these cases. Yo is estoy, yo is sé. These yo forms don't end in o. So that rule of start with yo and drop the o, well, there's no o to drop. What do I do? Well, what I do is I'm still adding an opposite vowel ending. So dar, an AR verb, gets lots of e endings. Aha, okay. Ir, I haven't got an o at the end of boy, but I do have endings for an AR verb. And, you almost see a little bit of boy, except it's vaya. Yeah. Ser, I don't have an o to drop at the end with soy, and this you hear a lot. That sea, you hear a ton, right? Or some form of it. Sea, sea, sea. Seamo, seam. Haber gets the aya forms there, right? Estar gets este forms. It goes to the opposite vowel still. So that concept of opposite vowel still holds up super, super well. Saber is super weird because saber, I used to tell the high school kids, turn the B upside down and you get to a P. I have no idea why that P changes from a B in saber to sepa. I have no idea, but when I told kids turn the B upside down to a P, they get a visual in their head, and okay, they could live with it. But here is the one thing that you hear all the time with saber, para que sepas, just so you know. And why do we say para que sepas? Because you don't know. So here's the chorus subjunctive. You don't know if it's really happening. That's what subjunctive is about. You really don't know. It is not part of our reality of something that is truly happening. Okay. See? Okay, a ver. I will send you these. You'll see some little examples, and there's going to be a video I want you to listen to where she uses a ton of examples of subjunctives, and we will attempt to use it in the easiest of situations. So, how to form subjunctive is not that hard, although it sounds like you're doing the conjugation wrong. I mean, that's the feeling you get, but yeah. Okay. When to use subjunctive is the problem for English speakers, not really how to form it. So, what I want to leave you with is that subjunctive talks about things that are not really part of the real world happening. So they're used when you say, I want somebody to do something. Yeah. I insist that you take off your shoes. Your shoes are on your feet now. I could insist forever, but your shoes are actually on your feet now. That action has not happened yet. And that's why it goes into subjunctive, right? The insist part, insisto, is still indicative, but the subjunctive comes in with the part of I insist that you take off your shoes. And you haven't taken off your shoes yet. So I don't know if that's really going to happen or not. That's what they do. So if that sounds weird, well, it's what they do. We have to just sort of get comfortable with the discomfort of it and get used to a lot of examples. And the more examples you hear, the more it will sound normal. But you almost have to just hear a ton of examples. So that's going to be our goal for the week. See? Bien? And then we'll come into class, and I'm not going to give you a set number of things to practice, but we're going to take like the easiest issues to practice and actually at the end of the slides that you just saw now about forming subjunctive, I'm going to give you the trigger situations that traditionally we tell people about. And that means they spell out the word weirdo, verbs of wanting, verbs of emotion, verbs that are impersonal phrases, verbs of recommending, of doubt, and then the little word ojalá. Those will all be what we call triggers, meaning they set off a situation of this isn't really happening. We have to use a subjunctive verb. Okay? See? Bien? But re-listen to the tipping video because you'll hear a lot of examples, and then you'll have a new one that will show you other examples of subjunctive. Bien? Bien. And we'll practice it next week. ¿Está bien?
Gracias.
Ok.
Gracias.
Muy bien. De nada, de nada. Espero que tengan, I hope you have, but you didn't have it yet. Espero que tengan buen día. I hope you have the rest of your day. That hasn't happened yet. Espero que tengan muy buen día.
Gracias.
Excelente. Sí.